What's up, everyone? Pet Party here. Your favorite, least favorite Hype Master Flex 4000 in his fancy suit today, so people might take me seriously. Today we're going to go over the Shonen Jump prize card Cyber-Stein. And in case you didn't hear, because you hid under a rock yesterday, Sassy Otto's auctions last night closed for a ungraded copy just over 10 grand. For anyone who doesn't know what Cyber-Stein actually is as a card, it was the first Shonen Jump prize card that was given out in Shonen Jump Championship Tournament. Originally, there weren't a whole lot of copies, but Konami, for some reason, decided to give out a bunch of their extra copies that they had floating around out at a random tournament for some reason. And depending on who you talk to, the estimated amount of copies potentially in the wild is around 130 to 150. I've heard as high as 500. I do not believe that for a second. If it was at that high, there would be a hell of a lot more copies graded. That's besides the point. So realistically, we're looking at 130 to 150 copies total that could potentially still exist. I'm of the camp, I guess you'll say, leaning towards 130 just based on the pop reports of graded copies and, copies I've seen out in the wild myself. So out of that, we're going to assume 30 to 50 copies of that card no longer exist. They've gone into the nether from anywhere from people lighting them on fire, throwing them out, or that one person who decided to put it in a laminator for some reason. Fun fact, that laminator copy sold in January for a third of the price of a PSA 10 copy that sold like 3 weeks prior to that. So keep that in mind if you're doubting the fact that this card actually sold for $10,000. The card did sell for $10,000. I was talking to the buyer multiple times, along with a few other bidders who were in the, $7,000, $8,000 up range on their bids. Outside of myself, there was 5 people that I know of planning on bidding at least $7,000 on the card. Card was originally a 9. It got cracked out of the case for someone's binder collection. I am still kicking myself in the ass for not picking that up, but it is what it is at this point. So basically, the thing that you need to understand with Cyber-Stein is the fact that this was the first of the Shonen Jump prize cards. So it's not going to be up there with, your Illustrator or anything like that for anyone who's in Pokemon. But I've, for a while now, been comparing it to Trophy Kangaskhan. I think it's a decent comparison. There's not as many copies of Trophy Kangaskhan as there are Cyber-Stein, but I think, when it comes to the, I'll call it, recognizable imagery on the card itself. I remember when I was a kid, seeing Cyber-Stein on the Beckett magazines, and that's something that I still remember. So it does have, a bit of face value to it for the longer, older collectors that are still kicking around. And because of the extraordinarily low amount of copies printed, this makes it rare, not just because, people want the card, but because there physically aren't a lot of copies of the card that exist, period, or ever existed. So people need to understand that just because you don't think a card is worth a price doesn't mean that someone else isn't going to pay it. A good comparison would be the Master Scroll debacle of the last few months. That card in a 10 sold, I'm going to say 4, maybe 5 months tops ago for $6,500, maybe $7,000 in a PSA 10. The following one that went up for sale was a 9. That sold for $7,500. And recently, on the last PWCC auction block, an ungraded copy sold for over $11,000. And you can bitch and moan and complain all you want. The fact of the matter is that people want these cards, and as they get squirreled away and everyone's collections never to see the light of day again, people are going to have to pay more money for them. So it's almost comical, actually, how extraordinarily angry are over how much this card sold for. Like, the card has been around for over a decade. There's been plenty of opportunities for people to buy the card if they wanted. The card was stagnant for the longest time around, the $2,000 to $3,000 range in your Beckett 9.5s or PSA 10s. There also are a few Beckett 10s as well kicking around. No black labels, I believe, though. They're just gold labels. Anyways. So there's an opportunity there. If anyone really wanted one, they could have bought one at that price that was stuck at that price for a very long time. Now, the problem is, like I mentioned before, there's what I like to call the rubber band theory. So the longer that a rubber band is held back, the further back it's going to go, which means the more momentum it's going to get when it finally snaps and gets launched into the atmosphere. So that's one of the things to keep in mind with this card. Because the price was held so low for so long, when the copies that were on the market finally started getting gobbled up and get posted at higher and higher prices, they kept selling at higher and higher prices, which caused a chain reaction and a panic of people to start, paying these asking prices on the card. So, 2, maybe 3 days max before this auction ended, a PSA 10 copy sold for $15,000. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I was hoping that this raw copy was going to go in the $7,000 range. I could scoop that one up and then pick up the 10. I'm a victim of my own hubris. Apparently, someone has the same ideas as me. A couple people literally only bid on that auction last night because they saw me posting about it and being a general jackass when it comes to this stuff. I have no apologies for that. I've been saying the card's been undervalued for ages. I said in January the card was going to be $10,000 by Christmas and a 10. Everyone laughed at me and said I was insane, and now an ungraded copy is $10,000. So you're welcome for that. The other thing to keep in mind is that Sassy is a very well-established eBay seller. He's got over 50,000 positive reviews on his eBay account at this point, and he ships internationally. So other thing you need to realize is a lot of sellers in the U.S. only sell in the U.S. They don't like screwing around with international shipping. They don't like sending shit over to Europe. They don't even like sending shit to Canada. If you go on ebay.ca even, you will not see anywhere near as many listings as if you go on ebay.com. So because of this, Sassy gets a lot of big spender type people on his auctions from overseas, who these cards might only be the only shot of them obtaining them through Sassy's auctions. Because no one else is going to ship to them, especially with all this shit on the go with COVID. So Sassy usually gets a premium on his cards, much like PWCC, because he's established and he ships everywhere. As long as your address matches your eBay account, you're probably golden. Probably want to hit up Sassy first, though, if you're planning on getting anything shipped to the moon. Just saying. So, quick review. There's not a lot of these cards. Only 100 or so copies. Popular and iconic card. The card was played and banned pretty well immediately, I'm pretty sure. Only came off the ban list recently. It was on the ban list for that long. On top of that, it was the first Shonen Jump prize card, so that carries a hefty price tag as well. Excuse me, Jesus. You've got a well-established eBay seller with tremendous amounts of positive feedback and who ships everywhere on the planet pretty well. And on top of all of that, you have no other copies up for sale at the moment. If there was, that 10 PSA 10 copy was still up for sale, chances are this one wouldn't have broken $10,000 because someone would have just taken that money and bought the PSA 10 copy. So, as much as you might be super angry that the card sold for what it did, there's nothing you can do to keep people from paying that type of money. I remember when I got back into the hobby, Geezy just picked up his wavy PSA 10 Blue Eyes White Dragon for $2,000, and I thought that was absolutely insane. Why the hell would anyone pay $2,000 for a piece of cardboard? You're stupid. You're an idiot, Geezy. I don't know why you do that. And, just over 2 years later, I'm paying more than 10 times that for the copy I've got. So everyone needs to think about things in perspective. One other quick story I'll share with you. I sold a PSA 10 Summon Skull in January for $1,000. At the time, the Summon Skulls were only going for $500 or $600. There just wasn't any copies on eBay at the moment, and no one would ship one internationally. So, the prospective buyer was buying a bunch of other cards off of me. He messaged me. He was like, "Hey man, would you do $800 for it?" I said, "Nah, not really. It's faded. I graded myself. I like keeping stuff I grade." "Well, would you do $1,000 and buy something else off you on top of it?" So I immediately was talking to, Yu-Gi-Oh! Tube and a couple other people, and they said, "You're an idiot if you don't take that. Take it and run to the bank." I took it, ran to the bank, and then I went towards my wavy red eyes. So no regrets there. But the thing you need to realize is I got super lucky. A couple months later, I picked up another copy for $750 roughly, plus eBay bucks, cash back on the credit card, all that fun stuff. But immediately after I bought that copy, the card skyrocketed. So the last sale of Summon Skull in a PSA 10 actually went for $1,500, and now the only one you can even buy for sale is at $2,000. And that's not even on eBay, that's just a private seller selling his copy. So you really need to take things in perspective, because in January, that $1,000 for a Summon Skull seemed like it was the stupidest decision to turn down. And looking at it 6 months later, most people will probably kill for $1,000 Summon Skull. So, couple things to think over. Let me know what you think. Hit me up on Instagram at Petaparty, because everyone likes bitching at me on Cyber-Stein, so you might as well too. So, have a good one.